Hello friends, and welcome to a special story time with Ms Zan from Gra Creations. Today is Read a Book Day, so I hope that you will take the time to read a book. For more information or for a special book challenge, please visit my blog that is listed below. And also, if you haven't already, please subscribe and like so that we can share the love of reading and singing and everything else with more people. All right, so today for National Read a Book Day, we are going to read one of my favorite books. This is a story by author Bill Peet, and it is called Big Bad Bruce. Now, I have had this book for forever. I got it when I was about 10. Seems like so long ago, but I hope that you'll enjoy it. This is the perfect book for all ages. There's great vocabulary words in it for 4th through 6th graders, and so just because it's a picture book doesn't mean that you can't enjoy it too. All right, Big Bad Bruce by Bill Peet. For Evergreen Forest was a quiet, peaceful place. Until Bruce, a great, shaggy brute of a bear, came wandering up out of a canyon one day. A bear of such size was enough to frighten anyone, and the smaller creatures who lived there kept a sharp eye on Bruce in case he might give them trouble. Look at that, he's a big, shaggy brute of a bear. As long as Bruce was busy rooting around under boulders and logs, searching for a feast of beetles and grubs, there was no need to worry. But when the big fellow was feeling frisky and ready for fun, it was time to beware of the bear. What Bruce called fun was to scare the wits out of everyone. Look at that little smile on his face. Very mischievous. The most fun of all for Bruce was rock tumbling. There were lots of rocks in Evergreen Forest, great jumbles of them. With a swipe of the paw, the bear sent them tumbling down steep slopes, 3 and 4 at a time. The tumbling rocks shattered logs and flattened the bushes and brush, leaving no place for the rabbits and quail to hide. So they took off in a panic to go leaping and dodging and flying pell-mell in every direction. Look at that. Bruce is being mean to those poor animals over here. Once he had all of them on the run, Bruce went roaring around on the ground, exploding into great roaring snorting fits of laughter. Har, 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 ha, ha, ho, ho. As long as the bear lived in Evergreen Forest, it would never be peaceful and quiet again. And for all anyone could see, he had come there to stay. Then, one afternoon, Bruce made an awful mistake, a terrible blunder. He came across a huge boulder resting on a bluff and decided to give it a ride. With a mighty heave, he sent the boulder tumbling down the steep slope. Flimmity, blimmity, whippity, whomp, smashing pine trees and aspens to splinters and leaving deep dents in the ground as it went. Look at that. That was a big boulder. Ooh. In one last bounce, it landed kerplump in a berry patch, just missing an old woman and her cat by a whisker. It was Roxy, a crafty little witch, who was out picking blueberries with her cat Clinker. "Where in blazes did you come from?" she shrieked, giving the boulder a vicious kick. "How did you get here? Who sent you?" Just then, a raucous roar of laughter echoed through the pines, and in a twinkle, Roxy caught sight of the bear on the bluff. "So that's who!" she cried, and in a fury she went storming up the slope to face the bear. "You big lummox!" She exploded. "You big bumbling brute! That rock could have smashed me to smithereens! And you think it's funny!" "Har, har!" chortled Bruce. "Ho, ho! Hee, hee! Har, har!" The bear had never seen anything half so funny as the frantic little woman with the wild flying hair. "Laugh while you can," warned the witch, "but just wait. I'll have the last laugh, Mr. Bear. Oh, indeed I will." Uh-oh, what's she planning? Then she took off like a shot to go streaking down the slope, so fast her cat could barely keep pace. And when the witch reached her cabin at the edge of the forest, she hatched a plot. "I'll make a pie," she decided, "a very special pie for old Mr. Bear." In a flicker of an eye, she made the pie crust, and in a trizzle and a trice, she whipped up a filling of blueberries and honey. "Now for the trickery," she muttered, flipping through her magical cookbooks in one of her favorite recipes. Then, reading the directions carefully, Roxy began to measure. 1 drop of dwindling, 2 blurps of belittling, a smidgen of minikin, a half a teaspoon of twerp, a shrift of shortening, and then a pinch of kaput should do it. The instant the pie was baked a golden brown and ready to serve, Roxy scurried out the door with it, back to the forest. Then, keeping an eye out for the bear, she crept along through the shadows, as slinky as a fox. Look at that, I love this picture of her cooking. Can you make a pie? Pies are fun to make. They're hard, but they're fun. When she reached a small clearing near the spot where she had met the bear, there was not a sign of him, but she could hear him snorting and snooting around in the brush somewhere up the slope. Quickly, she picked out a pine stump, jerked off her apron, and flung it over the top, then put the pie on it. "The table's all set," she whispered. "Now skit scat, kitty cat, let's get lost." And they ducked down behind a log, just a hop, skip, and a jump from the stump to wait for old Mr. Bear. Look at that. I love that she put on a tablecloth for the pie for a bear. They didn't wait long. Pretty soon a huffle of breeze sent the sweet aroma of blueberries and honey drifting up to Bruce, and he followed his snuffing nose straight to the stump, snatched up the pie in his paws, and in one clump and a slurp, it was gone. Oh, look at that. He totally ate it super quick. I'm thinking there could be consequences. "Ho, ho!" cackled Roxy, popping up from behind the log. "I tricked you, Mr. Bear. Ha, ha, did I ever?" Bruce didn't like being surprised, and he let go with an angry gruff. "Gruff yourself," Roxy shot back. "You don't scare me. Just watch out that you don't get pecked to bits by a quail or stomped on by a rabbit." Snorted the grumpy bear, and he wheeled around and lumbered off into the underbrush. Bruce hadn't gone very far when he began feeling drowsy. So drowsy he could hardly keep his eyes open. So he flopped down against a tree trunk to rest, and in the time it takes for one big yawn, he dropped off to sleep. While the bear slept, he gradually began to grow smaller. Inch by inch and little by little, Bruce dwindled away. He kept shrinking and shriveling until he was down to the size of a possum. And still he kept shrinking. When the diminishing spell had finally finished, the bear had dwindled all the way down to the size of a chipmunk. Look at that. That's a great visual, isn't it? So he goes from being the big bear all the way down to the size of a chipmunk. Bruce was awakened by a sharp peck on the head, and with an angry growl that came out like a squeak, he reared up, all ready to fight. But when he found himself nose to beak with a giant of a quail, Bruce backed off to gape in amazement. Then, as the bewildered bear looked around, he was surprised by 3 more giant quail and a pair of huge rabbits. Look at that, he's so small that the other animals look enormous. The rabbits and quail had recognized Bruce, and as they closed into attack, he quickly turned tail and went plowing headlong into a tangle of brambles. But there was no chance of outrunning the rabbits and quail in a thicket. They were close on his heels, pecking and stomping the bear with a fury. Bruce didn't dare try to fight back. He kept ducking and dodging his way through the brambles, frantically searching for some place to hide. A gopher hole, a flat rock to squeeze under, any place at all. Look at that, they're chasing him. Bruce is in trouble. He should have been nicer. At last he stumbled into a forest of cattails at the edge of a creek, and in a flying leap flung himself into the water, kersplush, and bobbed up well beyond the reach of the rabbits and the quail. Then, kicking and thrashing with all 4 feet, Bruce headed for the opposite bank, which was a long, long swim for a tiny bear. About halfway across, a sudden swirl of current sent him spinning around and around, upside down and under. Look at that, the poor bear. He should have been nicer. Bruce was about to be swept down the twisting creek and away forever when he grabbed onto a rock and managed to haul himself out of the water. When the bruised and bed-wrangled bear sprawled out on his belly, choking and wheezing and snorting out bubbles, until at last he was able to breathe. For a long time he lay there, staring into the swirling stream, trying to figure out what could have happened to make him so small. He wondered if it might have been something he ate. Suddenly, he remembered the blueberry pie and the fierce little woman who had warned him, "Watch out you don't get pecked to bits by a quail or stomped on by a rabbit." All at once, Bruce realized that he had been tricked by a crafty old witch, shrunk by a magic spell. Look at him on the rock all tuckered out. By the time the sun had gone down and deep shadows had crept across the creek, a chilly breeze rippled the dark water, and the soggy, wet bear shivered and shook from the cold and also from fright. Bruce knew that the night hunters were already out on the prowl, and now he was fair game. The jittery bear sat up on his haunches, looking all about in the dark for a sign of danger. He looked everywhere but up, or he would have seen the frowsy old owl peering down from the tree limb above. The fuzzy little brown thing on the rock was a choice tidbit for the owl, and he was just about to swoop down when, look at that. There's Bruce, and do you see the owl? Oh, Bruce is over here. Do you see the owl up in the corner? All right. When all of a sudden, a screechy voice split the air. Mr. Bear, with a terrified hoot, the owl sailed off into the night, leaving the bear to face another kind of danger. In desperation, Bruce scrunched himself up into a ball, hoping the witch would mistake him for part of the rock. But there was no chance of fooling foxy old Roxy, and holding her lantern out over the creek, she spotted the bear in a flash. "Oh," she cackled. "There you are, Mr. Bear. No bigger than a minute. Quick, Clinker, go fetch him. Skit-scat." Look at that, he's trying to hide from her. Before the bear could blink an eye, the cat snatched him off the rock by the scruff of the neck and leapt lightly back to the bank. "Good cat," cried Roxy. "Now home we go, but easy does it. This little bear has had a big day." As Bruce was carried along through the dark forest, he didn't dare put up a struggle. Besides, he was too weary to even lift a paw, and much too scared. He was sure the crafty old witch planned to fix him for good. If she could shrink him down to a runt of a thing, she can turn him into a tadpole, or into a flea, or make him disappear altogether. Oh, would you be scared? I know I would. But to the bear's surprise, the witch turned out to be a kindly old woman and as gentle as could be, just as long as she kept her temper. Roxy loved flowers and birds and animals, especially small animals. And she soon grew very fond of the tiny bear, so she decided to keep him that way. Clinker the cat also took a liking to the bear, and they ate out of the very same bowl and slept in the same corner together under the kitchen stove. Look at that, there's them eating, and then over here they're sleeping together. Isn't that sweet? Aww. Little bears have short memories, and in a few days, Bruce forgot all about being a giant of a bear. For all he knew, Roxy's flower garden was a beautiful leafy green forest with plenty of room to roam. Whenever the tiny bear was feeling frisky and ready for fun, he flipped pebbles around as if they were boulders, just to scare the wits out of grasshoppers, beetles, and caterpillars. From the bug's eye view, Bruce was a giant, big, hairy, scary, horrible brute of a beast. Look at that. He found new things to terrorize. He didn't quite learn his lesson, but close. The end. If you would like to read more Bill Peet books, be sure to check out your library, your local library, or go to Amazon or barnesandnoble.com. If you want more stories about Roxy the Witch, please check out Bill Peet's book, The Wing Ding Dilly, which features Roxy in it. My other favorites of his are The Caboose Who Got Loose. I love that one. How Doofus the Dragon Lost His Head, Herbert's Hair-Raising Adventure, and Kermit the Hermit. Those are, oh, well, and The Pinkish Purplish Bluish Egg. Just can't narrow it down. You know, there's just so many great, amazing books by Bill Peet. So, happy National Read a Book Day. I hope that you take the time today to read at least one book. If you're older and you're into chapter books, you know, just read for about 30 minutes. You know, reading is good for you and lots of fun. I hope to see you all here on my channel on Friday for Grandparents' Day. Yay! Where we get to celebrate our grandparents and let them know how much we love them. I hope you have a beautiful Read a Book Day, and be sure to read a book. Check out the blog in the description below for a challenge, and I will see you soon. Bye!